The simple truth is that the 2024 Polaris Ranger XD 1500 is the best side-by-side ever made. You're thinking, sure, they would say that. You're about to jump into the comments and tell us we're shills, that your Hank Dozer 1250 XL RS Super TR 2000 is actually the best. Go ahead, we won't stop you. Now that you're done commenting, we're sticking to our guns and we've come to Virginia to tell you why. Let's break this down by thinking about the 3 questions you should be asking yourself when you go to buy a side-by-side. The first question you gotta ask yourself is, what do you need it for? If you're most side-by-side buyers, the answer is work. You need it to haul tools, trash, mulch, whatever, from over there to over there. Now you were thinking you could do that with a truck, but you don't want to burden your pretty F-150 with the indignities of real work, and you're sick of paying taxes, registration, and insurance on some wheezing old beater you're going to take to the dump twice a week. Or you just want something smaller than a truck that'll fit through a narrower gate, use less fuel, ask for less maintenance, but still has AC and a halfway decent stereo. Enter the Ranger XD 1500. In there you get electric windows, HVAC, a proper stereo, seating for 3, a powered dump bed, and enough leg room for Joey the giraffe. Added to all of that, you get a 1,500 pound bed capacity, a 4,500 pound winch, 3,500 pounds of towing capacity, and a bed that's actually big enough to make use of all that. And yeah, 1,500 pounds, that is 3/4 of a ton. We are talking the territory of the Ford F-250 and the Ram 2500. So that takes care of what you need it for, but the second question is harder and it hits you right in the feels. What do you want? Look, we'd all love a 400 horsepower side-by-side with heated leather seats, 1,500 watt Bang & Olufsen stereo, navigation, the capacity to tow 15,000 pounds and haul a ton and only pay $15,000 for it. I'd also like $2 million in a jetpack. My point is, that doesn't exist. But the Polaris Ranger XD 1500 very much exists, and it's as close as you're going to get to that in a single package. Not only will this rig haul and tow enough to do basically any job you can think of, it will swaddle you in luxury while you're doing it, and it's built like a brick outhouse. That build quality is important because the side-by-side world is famous for build quality you wouldn't tolerate in a chicken coop, let alone a machine you just spent more than 30 grand on. The Ranger XD 1500 is the exception to that rule, and here's a great example. This windshield flips open. Now you've got a breeze coming in and plenty of ventilation, but if it gets hot or rainy, you can close it up, and this windshield seals to the frame and you don't get any air, dust, or water intrusion. Now, plenty of machines have flip-up windshields, but none of them have one that's this good. Another example is all of the switchgear. These buttons all feel great. They feel like they belong in a rig this expensive. Where other machines expect you to be happy with floppy rocker switches mounted in a dashboard that wouldn't pass muster on a Power Wheels, these actually feel well executed and high quality. We recently took the Ranger XD 1500 to the windswept beaches of Portsmouth Island, North Carolina, and only when we had the windshield all the way open did we actually get any sand inside. And thanks to the fact that it's got a steel belt transmission and a silky smooth 3-cylinder power plant, it was quiet in there. You could hear yourself think or have a conversation without having to yell. That made it easy to live with even in pretty trying conditions, and more importantly, it pointedly outperformed the other 2 machines we brought with us. So that's why you want it. But all of that leads us to the final question. What does it cost? The 2024 Polaris Ranger XD 1500 North Star Edition Premium retails for $39,999 in 3-seat trim. If you want the 3-seater in Ultimate, it's $44,999. Those numbers, at first blush, are shocking. I mean, you can get a really nice used pickup for that kind of money. And we can once again hear all of you piling into the comments section to tell us why we're wrong and list a bunch of other things you can get for 45 grand. As ridiculous as it feels to do this, allow us to retort. If you want anything other than the most shockingly bare bones utility UTV, you're gonna have to get used to the fact that it will cost you more than $30,000. The reality is, that's where the market is. You're not gonna change that any more than you can keep flies off a dead cat. The list of alternatives to the Ranger XD 1500 is as long as my arm, and it includes the Can-Am Defender, the Kawasaki Ridge, the John Deere XUV lineup, and yes, its little sibling, the Polaris Ranger XP1000. They're all available with HVAC, electric windows, stereos, touchscreen infotainment, and a long list of bells and whistles and baubles and bolt-ons. All of those machines land right around the $35,000 mark once you spec them up with all the niceties that the XD1500 comes with. But in all of those cases, you're going to have to put up with spending that much money on a machine for the build quality of that van. Sure, they've all got HVAC and a stereo, but will the interior panels stay in place? What about the plastic body fasteners? Will the suspension squeak like the bed springs in a freshman dorm? Probably. And some of them, like the XD1500, might have a flip-out glass windshield. But does it stay sealed after a day? Will it keep out a summer afternoon deluge? Like as not, your knees are getting wet. And then there's the drivetrain. In the other machines, you'll make do with, at best, 90-odd horsepower and a rubber belt CVT. Rubber belts are famous for heat fatigue under hard use, and whether you like it or not, you're gonna be replacing them. In almost every other utility machine, even the ones they tell you are quiet, you're gonna deal with a ton of wind, engine, and chassis noise. Some are worse than others, but the point remains that after hours on end, it gets really old. The Ranger XD1500 does away with all of that. Not only is the build quality better than the others, it's legitimately good. The ergonomics are solid, the material quality is better, and everything just kind of feels more nicely put together. The bottom line is that it feels like the machine was put together by someone who gave a damn, and that goes a long way. For your money, you're getting that lovely 110 horsepower inline 3 and the fantastic steel belt CVT. The steel belt is enclosed, and Polaris says it's a lifetime part. No more annual rubber belt swaps, no more burning up a belt under a heavy load. You just get in your machine and go. In the car world, none of that would be revolutionary, but this ain't the car world. UTVs, believe it or not, are still a niche product, and they're still technically a low volume product. But in Polaris's case, they still have to build these things in the United States, which means pay American workers. On top of that, they've also got to do research and development on all the parts they need to build these things, or go out and buy the parts from a third party. Then they have to ship the parts to a manufacturing facility, and sometimes a couple of manufacturing facilities before they get to final assembly. And then after final assembly, they got to ship them to dealers, and then those dealers have to sell the machines for a profit. That leads to a hard truth. Side-by-sides, no matter how you cut it, are expensive. If you have decided that your use case demands a UTV, you have two choices. You either pay the man, or you don't get what you need. Them's the breaks. And if you ask the manufacturers, they will tell you that they sell every one of these things that they can build, especially the ones built to a higher price point. That leaves them zero incentive to back off the spec sheet or start cutting the MSRP. And that leads us back to our thesis. The 2024 Polaris Ranger XD1500 is the best side-by-side ever made. It erases concerns about build quality while raising the standard of work performance to a level that the others simply cannot match. Where the other machines require big compromises, the Ranger XD1500 just offers solutions. It's not just an excellent side-by-side, this is an incredibly well-realized product. It moves the UTV industry forward. After this, side-by-sides are no longer just power wheels wrapped around a sport bike engine. This is now a truly excellent utility machine made to do utility tasks. So there you have it. That's why the Polaris Ranger XD1500 is simply the best side-by-side ever made. Thank you so much for watching. If you disagree with us, and we bet some of you do, go in the comments and tell us why. What is the best side-by-side ever made? What metric should we be using to decide that? We want to hear from you. And then we want you to head to utvdriver.com, where we've got news, reviews, and buyer's guides 5 days a week. And then you can catch us on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, 7 days a week, and we're here on YouTube. We'll see you there.